So this is Advent, a season within the church when we come with a sense of anticipation, a sense of hope, a sense of waiting for the coming of Christ. Now you may ask yourself, well, why are we anticipating and hoping and thinking about the coming of Christ when of course it is Christ's birthday that we celebrate? And I think our readings give us a glimpse into why we gather each and every year to celebrate not just the birthday of Christ, but also to anticipate the coming of Christ. Because our scriptures remind us over and over again that even as we gather for this Sunday, there is an anticipation of the coming of the Christ one more time. The coming of Christ into the world, the coming of Christ into our hearts and into our minds. And whether we think of that as a literal coming of Christ again, or whether we remind ourselves that the coming of Christ comes in us over and over again when we come to celebrate the birthday of Jesus, the coming of Christ comes into the world through us. It is that sense of hope and anticipation that we call ourselves to each and every Advent season, so that we are reminded that the coming of Christ is not just some future hope, some future glory. It is in the here and now, living and breathing through each and every one of us as we come to experience the birth of Jesus, the birth of hope, the birth of life, the light that comes into the world. We begin a new sermon series this day as we think about Christmas is not your birthday. Unless, of course, the 25th of December is your birthday. You know, sometimes God has a wonderful sense of humor. Just this past, actually 2 days ago, I was driving to Plano and my light on my car came on to remind me that I needed to put fuel into it. And so I pulled over to a gas station and I did the automatic thing, you know, where you put your card in and you put the pump on, and then I went into the little store and they were playing Christmas carols. It was the day after Thanksgiving. I thought that was appropriate, but they were playing their Christmas carols, and so I said, oh my God, it's such a wonderful Christmas time. And the man who was serving me behind the counter said, well, I don't like Christmas. And I said, well, I'm awfully sorry because you've got another 4 weeks of Christmas carols being pumped into the gas station here. He said, I don't like Christmas because I was born on Christmas Day. And I said to him, oh, now you've really just burst my bubble because I'm about to preach a series of sermons called Christmas is Not Your Birthday. And he took out his ID and he showed me very clearly right there and then that he was born on the 25th of December. And I said, oh, I am so sorry. For those of you who have birthdays around this time and this season of life, I'm so sorry. They get so lost in the whole Christmas experience as we remind ourselves of the real birthday that we come to celebrate. Christmas is not your birthday, and yet, quite honestly, it would feel as if Christmas is our birthday. With all of the stuff that goes on in these next few weeks, it is hard for us to take a moment to think about what is the real reason for this season. What is the real essence of this gospel? What is the real understanding that we come together each and every year to remind ourselves of the birth of Jesus? And how can we, as Cathedral of Hope and as individuals and in the busyness of all of the calendar events of this year, how can we take a moment to experience again the birth of Jesus? The literal birth of hope, the literal birth of light, the literal birth of salvation that comes into the world and is born in us this day. How can we experience this season of Christmas perhaps just a little different this year? To be reminded that this is not our birthday, but indeed if we are to come together as the people of God, how can we experience this birth of Jesus and to honor his birthday? How can we honor this experience perhaps through the liturgy of the worship experiences, but beyond just the experience of worship? How can we make Christmas a celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ and to allow that birthday to take its place in this world, to allow that birth to take its place in our own lives and through our own bodies? And how can we experience this Christmas to make a difference in the world? I really believe that that is the essence of what calls us in Advent. This season of anticipation is to ask ourselves those questions for ourselves so that we might make Christmas and have some meaning this year. Not just the calendar events, not just thinking about all of the parties that we might have to go to or to the celebrations of festivities and the lighting of the trees and all of those things, but how can we make Christmas different? I think here at Cathedral of Hope, we're trying to make Christmas different this year. We're trying to make Christmas a season of celebration that will remind us that Christmas goes beyond just the gift giving to one another, but how do we give a gift to Jesus? How do we make this moment of our own lives have substance and meaning and purpose? For the second coming of Christ is born in us this day. It is born in the very actions of our own lives. It's born in the way that we care for one another. It's born in the way that we deliver the good news of Jesus to this world. Now, I believe that that's how Advent comes among us, comes upon us, is that we are the deliverers of good news. Deliverers of hope. We light the candle of hope today. Deliverers of hope into the world. The hope of a second coming that is born in us. It's what Emmanuel means. It means God in us, God with us. And the truest essence of how God is with us this day is when we embrace the very values, the very life of Jesus in our own experience of faith. Embrace it so that we might give it as a gift to others. Christmas is not your birthday. It is the birth of a Savior, Jesus Christ, that is born in us. That very delivery of the good news that was born in us is good news that we are now asked to deliver to the world, to deliver into reality. Not just verbally, but to deliver it in ways that people would come to understand that there is still hope in this world. Still hope for today and for tomorrow. It is that very essence of who we are as people of faith that are called to be hope-filled, not hopeless. There's a lot of hopelessness in our world today. A lot of fear in our world today. A lot of questions that surround our world today. Jesus comes to us with this sense of good news and asks us to be the deliverers of that good news, to be born in us this day. So that as it's born in us, it is born in the world. There are going to be many opportunities for us to deliver that good news in real ways over these next few weeks. Not only is there the Christmas with a Cause where we can take one of those ornaments, and I want to give Patsy some credit and some thanks for that Christmas tree this year. She had her son visit for her over Thanksgiving, and he did not know that his Thanksgiving was going to be making ornaments for the Christmas tree. That was a gift she gave to her son. They spent the last couple of days getting those ornaments ready, but we have the opportunity to take one of those ornaments and to think of others, perhaps others at Maple Lawn School that we're in partnership with, kids that are underserved and perhaps might not get a Christmas gift otherwise. Or perhaps to think about those who are in need in our own community through our programs of eye care and Bark. I want to tell you, as I look around this church and I see the needs in our community, Cathedral of Hope are responding to those needs because we know that Christ is born in us this day. It's born in us whenever we give of ourselves. And that sometimes is in monetary ways, but it's also in the ways that we volunteer one with the other. The way that we give of ourselves, the way that we give of our time and our talent and our treasure, the way that we have made our pledges for 2017. And thank you for the many who have given those pledges so far, and for the many that I know who are just waiting for the offering to give it this Sunday. Wonderful ways in which we get to allow Jesus to be born in us. Birthdays become about us. But the birth of Jesus is not about us. It's about the way in which we give back to the world. It's the way in which we make the Emmanuel come to life in us. It's the way that we look beyond ourselves and to think of others, to do unto others as we would have done unto ourselves. Christmas, birth, Emmanuel, God with us, God in us, God through us, causes us to think beyond ourselves and to ask ourselves those deep spiritual questions. How is Jesus being born in us this day? How are we making the gospel of hope real in us this day? How are we enabling others to find the good news that they might have hope for today? How are we, as a church, as individuals, and as communities of faith, how are we reminding ourselves that Christmas is not just about the Christmas tree, or just about the shopping, or just about what's going to be on our dinner table on Christmas Day, or just about who's going to get invited? Christmas is about making Jesus come now, in the very here and now moments of everyday living. For the Christ of Christmas is with us. It's not just something that happened 2,000 years ago. It's not just something that will happen in the second coming of Christ. The second coming of Christ is now. It's in you and me. And we can experience these next 4 weeks just by elaborating on the Advent wreath and watching it come up and down and down and up and up and down. Or we can take what we experience and go into the world and be Jesus. Be the very essence of the birthday that we celebrate, and to light our own candles, the candles of hope and joy and peace and love. I pray, Cathedral of Hope, that we might use these next few weeks together to make Christmas matter this year, to make our lives matter this year, and to find at least one way where we can move beyond the essence of what about me to what about others. What about this Christ that was born in a stable 2,000 years ago, and relive that gospel message of good news for the world? It can be lived out in you and you and you and me, if we would but just take a moment each day in these next 4 weeks or so and ask ourselves, if Christmas is not my birthday, then whose is it? And how can I celebrate that birthday every day of my life? May God bless us in all of the blessings of Christmas. But through those blessings, may we give a gift back to the Jesus whose birthday it is. To God be the glory. Amen. God bless you, Cathedral of Hope.